you'll get to see just how effective they were able to allocate that money. Not so much.
Close family friend of Barnett says he predicted he might wind up dead.
I knew John because his mom and my mom are best friends.
He'd recently retired and moved back to look after his mom in Louisiana.
He wasn't concerned about safety because I asked him, I said, aren't you scared? And he said, and his voice and the way he would talk, no, I ain't scared. He said, but if anything happens to me, it's not suicide.
Well, that's interesting.
Now, if somebody comes out and basically says, yeah, they're not exactly checking the planes to make sure they're tip-top shape because they're trying to cut costs to ensure higher profits. Yeah, that could probably get you dead if you're,
So
in the wrong
this guy ended up,
time.
this guy got unalived.
He got Arkansided in just the other day.
That's unfortunate.
So John Barnett was testifying regarding Boeing's illicit business practices, and as a result, decided to take his own life, apparently, a couple of days ago. Now, I don't believe that, and I don't really know who does. But
certainly not if that was his family or his wife or whoever was talking that said that he had specifically said, if I turn up dead, it was not a suicide. I think that's pretty telling.
Well, it's kind of the same thing that people say regarding people like Julian Assange or any of these other circumstances where you really are getting in the crossfire of capital. And I've always said, no, you could see this with any politician. It doesn't matter. And this is part of the reason why I think a lot of them will not speak on MMT, is because when you cross capital, you're putting yourself in harm's way. You just are. Absolutely. Because it's also the system as it stands. Second day testimony and died in a hotel parking lot. Yeah. It reminds me of Analyze That, the sequel to Analyze This, when Jelly is talking to Billy Crystal's character and he says, how did you get out of jail? It's like, I had my case thrown out. I said, how did that happen? Well, the guy who was supposed to testify against me, he thought otherwise. They said, well, why did he do that? He said, well, he stabbed himself in the back 24 times and threw himself out a 4-story window.
You're saying that like anybody saw that movie.
I'm saying
nobody saw the sequel because most people didn't see the first one.
Again, you with your anecdotes are so stupid. It's unbelievable. I'm talking about the fact that no one is going to believe that a mafioso somehow got another trial, just like no one's going to believe that the person who's literally testifying that can break Boeing at the knees somehow decided that he was going to commit suicide. There's just no explanation. And I bring up what was one of the key stories during the Clinton-Bernie primary in 2016, when there was somebody who was going to testify against Clinton about her illegal handling of a private server in her home. The guy somehow mysteriously dies from a weightlifting accident because the weights dropped on his neck. This stuff is not an accident.
I'm not saying it, he is.
I'm saying it, and I'll own it, because that's a story I'll never forget. And stories like this, I'm never going to forget. No one in their right mind would believe that this is a suicide. The problem with our corporate captured system is that this story is going to disappear in a couple of days.
Yeah.
And that's the worst part of it. Your thoughts, Steve?
Yeah, two things. Number one, I don't believe it's corporate captured. I believe that it's always been this, and that we're just kind of getting hip to it. I believe that the founding documents that created the quote-unquote colonial nation of the United States has always been about propping up wealth and defending wealthy landowners and saving private property, et cetera. And we've always sort of been on the outside looking in. And we just can't fathom that that's true, because we've been lied to that we're all equal with this, with that, and the other. And we've tried to even eliminate the concept of class in this country because, I don't know, identity politics has taken over. But reality is that this has always been the way it is. In fact, let me nerd it up for you a little bit. When I was getting my MBA, one of the projects that we had to do was talking about one of Marilyn Monroe's ex-husbands, Arthur Miller. And he did a play called All My Sons. And what it was they owned a company that created certain things for airplanes. And during the war, these planes kept going down and the pilots were dying. And they figured out that it was a product that they were developing that wasn't right. It wasn't fit for purpose. It was always going to break. And they decided that it was better to say, I'm sorry, and pay a fine than to actually fix it. So this is your standard corporate, logic, and it's backed up by law, and it's backed up by the elite, and it's backed up by LOL libertarians that lick the boot of capital in the daily, that sit there and defend it. Even though they're down here on the bottom, they believe that pee on their head is actually rain. They think that trickle down is their manna from heaven. And it is so widespread. It's trickled out. You see how many, faux leftists have merged with libertarians and haven't really realized that this kind of stinking thinking toward capital is killing us all.
This was one
And
of the best.
unfortunately, we have never been able to coalesce around these things because they've been masterful at taking our eyes off the class product here. They put it on identity politics.
Yeah.
We're all shredded and splintered into a million different subgenres of resistance. And we're resisting the resistors, and we're resisting each other. And ultimately, at the end of the day, it's why this stuff can happen with impunity. But I must tell you, I think this is really super important. I'm going to tie in something Jen said at the very beginning about the job guarantee with this. And that is that ultimately, you're right, Jen. You're not going to be able to pass the job guarantee unless suddenly Congress all decide, yes, let's do this. There's enough of the literal owners of capital that rotate through industry and back into politics and in and out that have control of this thing. And ultimately, workers having more freedom and having less coerciveness in terms of austerity measures being put on them, well, that means that they don't have to take whatever capital gives them. And there would be an absolute freak out. Capital didn't have access to whatever labor it wanted in whatever fashion it wanted. So ultimately, not a single one of your colleagues, if you get in office, is really going to fight to the death on this. They're not going to go to the mat for this. And this is one of the problems with the fake democracy that we have in this country. And it is fake. I'm done tiptoeing around it. It's not a real system. It's not a real opportunity for citizens to weigh in. There was an old Princeton study that a bunch of centrists tried to shoot down, but this Princeton study showed that no matter what, when push comes to shove, that the wealthy elite get what they want and the people get nothing. It doesn't matter how outnumbered they are. At the end of the day, the system is built. It's kind of like when you go to a casino and you're absolutely positive you're going to walk out of there a millionaire. But the casino understands and has every single one of these things rigged to give out a few winners here and there, just enough to keep people interested in coming back, but they're there to make money. And that's the same thing with Congress. They're literally they're the puppets. They're the mouthpieces for capital. And ultimately, if somebody grows a conscience, there's always a rotating villain to make sure that whatever they were trying to do won't happen.
Yeah.
So it's like a rigged system, a system
Oh,
that
I
doesn't
know.
produce democratic results. Even if
Yeah.
you get elected, it doesn't produce democratic results.
It's
And
finished
so
I know.
we're in this
But-
position, though, where let's say someone like yourself who really wants to make it happen, make something really good happen, you would need way beyond the political parties, way beyond the
yes.
electoral process.
Yes.
You would need people organized, ready to fight, and say, I know what you did last summer, and mean it. But
Yeah.
unfortunately, look at how horrible centrist shit libs are right now. You're watching a genocide occur in Gaza, and these people are going, what do you want, Trump? And I don't want Trump. I don't want Biden. But the point is that to them, Biden could eat babies in Gaza and it wouldn't matter because
No, they don't
what
care.
about Trump? What
Right.
about Orange Man Bad?
The derangement is definitely more prevalent on their side.
He wants to
than yours.
finish his video. We're gonna
It's
finish
bad.
You know, I know that he did not commit suicide. There's no way. He loved life too much. He loved his family too much. He loved his brothers too much to put them through what they're going through right now.
And he basically told you not to believe it.
Yeah, basically, yeah. Not true. He's got too much to do, likes breathing. And he did. He had a lot of plans and things that he wanted to do.
Yeah, I'm sure that was a.
He likes breathing.
By the way,
yeah.
For anybody, if anybody's interested, just do a little research into what happened to the U.S. attorney out of Miami that was investigating the Broward election fiasco of 16. Just I'm not going to get into it, but just check out what happened to him.
Yeah, but that also shows you that the system is breaking, and unfortunately, they have to resort to violence when you get to this point because they want the people to stay in line, and that's really what it comes down to. Yes, Jen is running as a Dem. If you are interested in supporting a viable campaign, which it is, make sure that you...
I have people now. Stop that. Steve has to go like this.
Steve, can you point to that QR code?
You got to point to the QR code.
Yes.
That's right in front of you.
Code.
Yeah.
Guys, get over there where Steve's finger is. Take out your phone and just put the camera right over it.
And seriously, guys, and I say this all the time, yes, we need money, but follow the campaign because right now, this is probably the most people I think I've ever had on a live stream. And I do realize that most people are on Twitter, but that's still great.
Well, the sign of the devil is following us on Twitter.
Wow, we're at 666 on Twitter. That's hilarious.
Yeah.